My name is Elizabeth. I'm an alcoholic. I'm really honored to be here at this meeting tonight. Um, I was here last week and heard Sean Jay and was so moved and meant to call him this week. But after I heard him speak, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to read every author he just mentioned. And it was one of those talks where I was so moved and inspired, but also felt like I had a long way to go myself. I hope my internet holds out. I'm on my phone. My internet's broken right now. I chose this quote, I guess it was about a month ago. And the reason why I chose it says we find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration, and we come to rely upon it. Because I am a thinker. I'm a doer. I'm a problem solver. I was a little adult by the age of 4, right? So when I was growing up, we didn't hear very much about God. My mother had been raised Catholic, and she didn't want to raise us that way. And I didn't know any other way to be other than to rely on myself. I was left alone to take care of my sister when I was very young. She's 2 years younger than me. And I was told I was smart like my dad. And so I set about, trying to figure everything out. And, I even got into a career where I ended up teaching myself everything that I learned because they didn't have school for it. I got into the internet and computer graphics right when they started. And, it's always been about self-sufficiency for me. I got sober January 3rd, 1988. I was 21 and a half years old. I've never had a drink since then. So I'll be celebrating 35 years sober in January. And I'm so grateful for that. But just like when I was in middle school, I'm a late bloomer. And I got to admit, I was lucky. I loved AA. I loved how you all talked from the heart and said how you felt, people admitting to being afraid and insecure. And I never heard anyone talk about that stuff before. But I came into AA at a time when a lot of people were into therapy and self-help books. I mean, it was like the happening place to go to the self-help aisle at the bookstore. You'd see your friends, it's like, have you read the latest this or the latest that? And I didn't know any better. I went to these meetings where everyone was in therapy. And after the reading of the 12 steps, you really didn't hear any more about AA. There was a lot of love. There was a lot of fellowship and bonding in that group. And I really love those people. And as a woman in her 20s, who's the oldest in my family, I was told things like, oh, you could be the first woman board member of the family business. You can do all this stuff. And I knew I was one of those people that could, study the night before the test and get an A, or write a paper, right before it was due and get an A. And I always knew I could get by. I could make it. But something happened to me around about 14 years sober. All the things that I'd gotten in sobriety, I was losing. I was in a painful situation, and I remember thinking to myself, I know why I'm in this situation, and I can tell you everything about it, but I still can't get out. And I realized that must be what powerlessness felt like. I got in here so easily at the beginning that I didn't really feel that with alcohol. I didn't. I was one of those that stopped in time. I'm on page 32 in the book, I think. And unlike, I'll get to this in a minute, but I made it in here. I got by without really getting a hold of the spiritual solution offered by the 12 steps. I managed my life, and it worked for as long as it did. And then for a long time, I didn't know the difference. I had 3 kids, one with special needs. They were at 3 different schools, 2 dads. I was just telling somebody today, they were saying, oh, you give all this time to AA. I'm like, because I can now. I used to be a single mom of 3 with, sometimes with a job, sometimes with a business, and it was nothing but chaos, crazy busy all the time. Oh my God, we left the dress shoes at dad's. Oh my God, we need a poster board at 10 o'clock at night. It was constant. And in AA in Louisville, I did not hear a lot about 10, 11, and 12. You know, oh yeah, 10 step, go back and do a 4-step every year. Sometimes I joke, like, come to Louisville, you graduate after the 9th step. Where I went, I didn't hear a lot about it. Okay. And what the point was, right? And I tell you what, sometimes for me, this program boils down to one sentence, one single sentence for me. And it's on page 60. And it says, now we're at step 3. Just what do we mean by that? And just what do we do? The first requirement is that we be convinced that a life run on self-will can hardly be a success. Well, my whole life is about trying to be a success, but running my life on self-will. Now you're going to tell me so, and I'm so good at lying to myself that I'm not going to see it. I've got all kinds of ways to hide from the truth. You know, ask me how I'm doing. You know, when somebody says, how are you? And you think, well, which area of my life do you mean? You know, well, which one are we going to talk about? You know, depends on what you mean. I didn't even know what I didn't know. You know, when people talk about that, I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. I knew that I was crazy. I was up and down all the time. You know, my well-being depended on how my day went. It depended on, did we, you know, I mean, I remember I had one kid, it could not get him out of bed, could not. Okay. And I mean, the whole morning was spent trying to get this kid out of bed. By the time we got in the car, sometimes my youngest didn't have his shoes on. And we had to drive really far to get to all the schools. So sometimes, and we had some time in between the 2 older kids getting dropped off and the youngest kid getting dropped off. We'd just go buy another pair of shoes at Walmart. I mean, but I it was just insane. And, you know, I thought, well, if you had my life, you'd be crazy too. And I talk to people like this now, you know, and they're just, oh, they're so stressed out and this and that and the other. And oh my God, and blah, 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 blah. And then 2 years ago, I get on Zoom. Wow. I found a fellowship of people and I really liked it. And I met this guy and I was like, you know what? I bet there's some more places to plug into. And so I met somebody and they directed me to a group in California. And this group in California, some of you have heard of it's called Prime Time. They don't talk about drunkalogs or yesterday's problems or blaming other people. They talk only about how do we treat my disease today and the day that I'm in. They came up with a term that I've never heard before, untreated alcoholism. What? And I remember thinking somewhere around 28 or 30 years sober, what's like, and I hit these places in recovery, right? Where I think, what's wrong with me? It happened right before I got sober. It happened right before the 14-year mark where I met my sponsor. Talk about her in a minute. You know, these places where I think, what's wrong with me? Something's wrong with me, you know? And I buy into that message that, oh, I'm not drinking. So I guess I'm a success by AA standards, right? Somehow. And I guess maybe I need more therapy because I forget and I don't know what the purpose of the 12 steps really is. I don't get it. I didn't get it for so long. I didn't understand. And I learned an amazing phrase. And I love this. And it's watch all day, pray all day. Watch all day, pray all day. Because I got to a place where I thought, wait a minute, I'm always agitated and I'm never doubtful. I thought, how come I can never get that pause? I never can get it because I don't know I need it. Because I don't know the difference. I don't know the difference between living on self-will and living on God reliance. As Sean Jay talked about last week, he said there's a transformation that happens. I took notes. Hold on. He said, transition from self-reliance to God reliance. And until I really hit the wall with self-reliance, I didn't look for a God. I'm my own God. I was always looking for how can I be my own God? You know, we had some upset in my, I do a lot of service in a newcomers group, and we had some upset recently, and some people did some stuff and some people were rushed, you know, felt like it wasn't very trustworthy. And I thought, you know, what's funny is I'm never mad at them for being untrustworthy. I'm upset with me because I didn't choose well. I should be able to choose well, because if I can choose well, then I can be my own God, and then I don't need a God. That's what it's all about. Any resentment I have, it's because I failed at playing God again. I don't want to have to need a God. I want to be God. Once I realize that, oh my God, then everything gets put through a new filter, right? I love the Big Book Awakening because it has that part in the third column. It talks about the self-esteem is what role have I assigned myself? Well, I'm God, of course. Everybody's supposed to listen to me and do what I want. And then the role I assign you is pride, right? Once I started to see things through that filter, things started to change, and I started to wake up and see how my whole life was about trying to control you, trying to control me, trying to control my emotions. And when people bring up step 11, there's a guy that talks about anytime I have a problem with a step, it's really the step before it that I'm having a problem with. And then he can go all the way back to step 1 from 12 to 1. He can go all the way back and talk about each step and how come you're struggling. And see, for me, I'm not doing step 11 unless I do step 10 and I see what's up. What's going on? Where do I need God's help? Where am I seeking through prayer, meditation, my conscious contact? Because if I can't see that I'm in self-will, then I'm just in it. I just can't see it. And it blows my mind, how many layers, and my friend calls it spiritual whack-a-mole, that I can't see what's going on. My sponsor comes from the Fellowship of the Spirit. Her name is Camille F. She's 50 years sober. When she was my age in sobriety, she was speaking all over the place. I am so grateful for her. I did not know how lucky I got. She married a lawyer. She's from Denver. She got taught the Big Book by Don P. She came to Louisville, taught a whole bunch of people the Big Book, married a lawyer here. She was here for 30 years. And she taught me that the number one point of all of this is to develop a relationship with God. That it's all about that. She said, I'm not your God, and I'm not here to play God in your life. I don't know what God wants you to do. My job is to teach you the 12-step program, and then after that, it's to remind you to seek the spiritual solution to your problem. And that's it. To remind me. And I would call her up and she'd say, and she has this kind of funny, weird, kind of Pacific Northwest, Midwestern accent. She's like, I can't imitate her. I wish I could. But she'd say, well, did you ask God? I'd call her up with something, did you ask God? And then one time I said, but I have a decision to make. She said, then go write inventory, then ask God, then call me back. And at the time she was sponsoring 25 women. And I realized very quickly how she was able to do that. No wonder. And she gave me tons of her time, and we met every week, and we did a lot of work, and we did the, going through the Big Book line by line. What does it mean to you? Turning things into questions. She didn't make us do the BBA, thank God. That's a lot of writing. I love that tool, but boy. And she taught me that point. What is it saying to me? She said, you need to have a personal relationship with the Big Book. You need to find out what it's saying to you specifically. Thank God for that, because I didn't drink like those old men. I didn't get to that point, but I sure did try to touch the hot stove in a tricky way that Elizabeth had, and that's what hit me. Like we're trying to touch the hot stove. Now I want to tell you about my experience this year. I've learned that whenever my self-will works, that's what I'm doing, And it's really interesting. Another quote. This is from my sponsor. She said, God will find ways to draw us closer to him. I didn't know what I was going to talk about tonight. It's funny. As of Thursday, there was no discord going on in my life, really. I've had a lot this year, but it's funny because usually when I'm getting ready to give a talk, usually the wheels fall off, the week sucks. Like there's all kinds of stuff that happens. And it's like, then you don't have time to think about the talk. Because sometimes when I'm, I speak a lot, but when it's a meeting, people are like, oh my God, he asked you to, this meeting has kind of a reputation. And as of Thursday, I was like, don't give the talk for, it starts rambling around a little, what am I going to talk about? I get it in the back of my mind. And then a bunch of stuff happened between on Friday. It was like, anyway, so I haven't even had time to think, and I didn't know what I was, where God would take me with this. But I do want to talk about my relationship. And some of you know, for the first time in my life, I had a relationship with another alcoholic. I always stayed away from them, like I was told, I was kind of kidding. Don't date anybody in AA. I married another alcoholic in 2018. We've been together. We were together from 2016 on, and he is someone who relapsed a lot. And when I told my sponsor, she knows him, we all know each other in Louisville AA, that I had feelings for him, she kind of laughed and just said, well, let's make sure you're in the book. And she didn't warn me away. He wasn't that long out of he had had a relapse and came into AA. Now I'm going to tell you, it was really hard. It was not an easy relationship. It never was. But I jokingly say I became the partner that my first husband deserved. That's the joke. But I really did use my conscious contact in this relationship like I never had before. I fell in love at age 50. Yeah, I do want to talk about this. I was single for a really long time, and I would take my daughter to Catholic school, and all the couples were still together. They hadn't given up on their marriages. There's more divorces now, but I always felt so left out. And with my oldest child having special needs and all the chaos that I was talking about, like I really never had time to worry about that part of my life. And I tried dating and it didn't work out. It's really hard to date when you're in AA because, people don't have a clue what's going on. And then you do. It's kind of like having a midlife crisis really early, and you kind of know your stuff. And then, and then with kids, it's like, I'm not going there in that situation. So I just kind of resigned myself to be alone for a long time. And I was alone for about 14 years. And then when I met Rob, he felt like home. And, and part of me lives in a Meg Ryan movie. I'm not going to lie. It's like Sleepless in Seattle, right? I touch his hand and I did. And I felt hard for him. And I have done ACA work and codependency work and all that stuff. I have, I can communicate. I have healthy boundaries. I know, blah, blah, blah. But my husband was often a dry drunk, and it was very hard to live with somebody who was angry and depressed and shut down. It was very challenging. I spent time in Al-Anon. I did a lot of work. And I tried really hard to be patient and loving and be a good partner to him. But we fought often about whether or not he was going to work a program or not, and whether or not that was my business, and whether or not, what to do. And in the last year we were together, I began to distance myself from him. I kind of listened to the Al-Anons who said, go live your own life, because I didn't know what else to do. But yet I thought that we would get through it, that we would be together. And I thought we'd kind of gotten past the point where we would consider splitting up. And he made me feel so loved. He was so good at that. I mean, he would go down the hall, get on a Zoom meeting where I was in the meeting, pin me and take my picture and then send it to me. I mean, it was adorable. Like, I mean, our love for each other and it was beautiful. I loved being married to him. I was willing to do whatever it took to be in that relationship. And my dad was married 38 years to my stepmother. She had an intervention and made him go to Hazelden. And then they had a period of time where he was in a dry drunk and he was treating her badly. And she had them separate for 6 months and both go to therapy and work it out. And she said, you work on your marriage. You don't give it up. My first marriage, my mom has been married 4 times. She said, if you're unhappy, get out. I didn't have the ideas about marriage that I did in this one. I wanted the chance to be a wife again, and I wanted a chance to be married again. So so I'm leading all up to something, right? In the spring, in May, my husband got very ill. He had relapsed, and I didn't know this yet. I did not know he had relapsed, but I knew that he was being verbally abusive and that it wasn't okay. And when I objected, instead of working things out with me, he did some things that made me decide to divorce him. And soon after that, we talked about reconciling, and he said he didn't think he loved me anymore. And this just gutted me. I mean, I thought, and thinking about this, God finds ways to draw you closer to him. I was abandoned a lot as a child. There wasn't love shown, there wasn't affection. My mother she wasn't able to show that to us. My dad, if you waited long enough and watched enough televised golf, which I actually now enjoy, he would turn around and treat you like your best friend if you waited and pretended to like what he liked. So I was just absolutely, May 28th, the night of May 28th was when he told me, and I thought everything that we did was because of that love, that it was so mutual. It was completely mutual, and that there was no way that this could happen. And the next morning, I woke up at like 4:30, and I can't stay in this house. I am gutted. I am coming out of my skin. I don't know what to do with myself. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm more the person that stays up till 3 a.m. and sleeps till noon. I'm definitely not the kind of person. Can somebody tell me how much time I have left? Because I forgot to start my counting thing. Oh my God. So what time should I stop? Will someone tell me?
You got about 15, 20?
15? Okay. So yeah, so I thought, what am I going to do? I got to get out of this house. So I've lived in Louisville all my life, and I literally looked up and Googled places to watch the sunrise in Louisville, Kentucky. I thought, well, I'll go watch the sunrise somewhere because I got to get out of this house. And I went to this beautiful place in Louisville called, it's Cherokee Park. It was designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, who designed Central Park. And there's this place called Behringer Hill. And I went and I sat and I took a journal with me and I started to write. Now, yeah, I didn't know if I was going to share about this, but I am. After I wrote a little bit, I wrote, God, what next? Now, I've been to those two-way prayer workshops. So two-way prayer is where you write down your prayer to God, and then you pray, and then you write down all the thoughts that can come to you. Basically, you can look it up. It's something the Oxford group apparently practiced, that the early AAs did a lot to work on their conscious contact with God. I sat there and I wrote, and the two-way prayer happened organically. In these workshops, people would say, when they talked about what their God said back to them, they would start with things like, my beautiful child. And in those workshops, I'd think, oh, gag me. I would never say that. Like, that's just not me. Like, no, that's not going to happen. But I want to read you what happened. This happened. It just happened. It just happened. It was crazy. And this is like the white light experience for me. I wrote a bunch of pages, like about 3 pages, and then I wrote, I'm feeling afraid, lost, sad, shocked, confused, a tiny bit strong, a microscopic bit of hope, sitting here watching such an incredible view, 1 hour past sunrise over the trees at the bottom of Behringer Hill, sitting on a bench. I may have to do this more often. God, what next? My beautiful child, do you hear the birds? That is evidence I am all around, close and far, loud and quiet. I know you hear so many now, and one is loud and close. That is a reminder I am with you, always with you, walking, listening, seeing. You, my creation. You are beautiful, capable, clear, strong, powerful. I have you. I got you. Walk forward knowing you are never, ever alone. Reach out to those reaching back. They are comfort. I sent them to you. You have much love. I will not forsake you. And I wrote, I'm hurt, so hurt. Hurt is part of it. I'm sorry, but trust. It has to happen exactly this way. You will understand. I know you want to understand. Be patient. Keep walking. You will see soon. Be true. There is a world within and without. all for you to find. You will. Don't worry. We are together. You will know me if you keep trying. Do everything that is needed. You will know what to do exactly when it's time to know. So relax, be easy and carefree. Walk towards everything you want. Look at the truth of what you really want. I already know. I will give it to you if you follow me. That's all you have to do. You have everything you need inside. We can do this as often as you want because I am always right here. Let it comfort you. I'm glad it is. I know your every thought. See the beauty I made for you. Listen to it all whenever you feel alone. And that was the first time I really truly felt the nearness of my creator. That was such a life-changing experience for me. That's why I thought I might share it tonight. I always had this feeling like I was missing something. You all would talk about 11th step. You would talk about your conscious contact. And it's like I had this, something Sean said last week about, it's not about understanding. It's about knowing. And I read that to a friend of mine and she was laughing. She's like, yeah, you got it, girl. That's your God talking to you right there. And I did feel that way. I just, there's some gel pens that write really fast and smoothly, like, and it was just coming out. That was not me. I've gotten so much quieter since then. I've been through hell this year. Being on the front lines of another person's addiction is painful. I've never experienced that before. He went off the deep end when we got divorced, lost 50 pounds. I mean, just, it was bad. Very, very, very sick. He's now in a treatment center for 3 months, so that's good. But it was, I felt like I was ripped out of my life. I was just ripped out of it. Right when, two of my kids aren't here anymore. I have one half the time who's basically self-parenting. I mean, he's 17 years old, never needs help with anything. Straight A student, totally easy kid. And I just felt like this, like, what am I going to do? And one of the things that I have definitely, you think about all these AA quotes, at least I do. I think about these different quotes and kind of, read the book. It's like, which sentences are popping out at you today? And what blows my mind, people, here's an example of what I'm trying to say. People will say, what are you going to do about Rob? Well, he's in Texas for 3 months. I guess what I'm going to do is clean my house, meet with my sponsee, and do some Christmas shopping. Like, living in the day. Which parts of this program are so important? I don't have the answers about so many things right now. And that was my whole life, was trying to figure out what the answers were going to be. Fill in the blanks, answer the questions, think. What are you going to do next? What are you going to, that was my whole, what about you? What about that? What about this? What about the future? What about the past? That's all I ever did. Now I can be quiet. And I can live in the question marks. I can live in the unknown and have faith that my God is taking care of me, and anything that doesn't have clear answer and clear direction right now, right in front of me, I don't have to worry about. Say, God, take this. And I love the Emmett Fox golden key. Golden key means when my brain is loud and all that stuff's going on, the chatter, I can just go, God, 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 God. God is great. God is here. God is anything. Just start thinking about God and start this sort of thing in my brain to shut up the loud part of my brain. Because guess what? Nothing needs me to think about it. It's not gonna give me an answer for me to study it, think about it, figure it out. I don't have to do that anymore. I can let. If I ever got a tattoo, it'd be the word let. Let God be in charge. Let God provide the answer when it's time. I will have the answer when it is needed. I don't have to worry about it. Like I said, there wasn't a cloud on the horizon on Thursday, and then then some people decided to leave our home group and start another meeting. And the way they went about it hurt a lot of people's feelings. And there's been a lot of talk and a lot of, it's like, really, right before Christmas, who has time to go read about tradition 4 and how to explain it to everybody? Like, it's just kind of funny. It's like it just popped up, and there's just been a lot of people wanting answers and a lot of discussions being had. And um and then there's some people that are really unhappy and they're talking about people, and so we had a meeting today to talk about like what to do, and how do we go about this. We're having some people in the group that were it's just whatever. It's just been a lot of noise, a lot of noise, a lot of noise. And I'm like, okay. And it's hard when you do have people that are coming to you for answers. And I had to say, look, guys, I hope, I am working on that, getting to that place where no matter what happens, I just totally wish everyone well and hope for them, and want to just love them exactly where they are. But if you hear anything in my voice that doesn't sound like that, it's because I'm working on getting there. It's I'm kind of slow sometimes, and I'm glad I can be transparent about that. And the thing about dealing with the divorce this summer, and then the attempts at reconciliation, and there was a lot of there he was pretty much relapsing all summer, and there was a lot of dishonesty and a lot of things that I ended up dealing with. I am so grateful that I have been transparent and not shaming of myself and talking about what's been happening. And there was a night in August where I'm 34 years sober, and I had something happen that was so painful that I thought, I'm going to drink or hurt myself. And I came back here to my house, and I just started calling people. I started doing everything we learned how to do in AA. I started calling people. I started talking about what was happening. I didn't hold back. I wasn't alone with it. And the other magical thing that happened is, because of this relationship and me being lonely in the last year, I got involved in online AA, and I got involved in a home group. And because I got involved, I have sponsees, I have service. I'm in the book all the time. And in that moment, that night that was so difficult, one of the thoughts that came to me was, people are watching me, how I handle this. And I'm not going to let this take my sobriety. But I'm going to tell you, it was shocking to me how close that drink was. It was right there. It was right there. So I'm not cured. And there have been so many times, like, I've gone through days of anxiety. They didn't have anxiety as a word in the 1939. They had restless, irritable, discontented. They used the word depressed, prey to misery and depression. But anxiety, man, can just get me. And that's when I have to pray. And one day I was like, oh my God. And the longer I've been sober, the less I can tolerate pain, not the more. Bad news for everybody. I don't know about anyone else, but the longer I'm sober, the less I can tolerate pain. So I don't sit on inventory. I don't sit on things. I immediately, so I'm praying, praying, praying. And this is funny. So this one day I thought, God, what is this, the best we got? Prayer? Really? This is it. That's all we got. And then I realized, oh, that's why they slapped the doctor's opinion on the front of the book. No, we don't have anything else. This is it. This is what we got. And then page 53 really came into view for me. I have a decision to make here. That everything that's happening that I am really angry about, and I don't like the way it's going, thanks God, I gotta trust my God. I just trust him. It is really it really is a choice. It really is a choice. And it's a wholehearted thing. That thing they say, the half measures. All these quotes just keep popping out in my life, all of them. It is 100%. I got to be all into this thing, because that disease is cunning, baffling, and powerful. and I got to trust my God has got me. So I talk to God a lot and I say, hey, I don't like what you're doing at all, but I trust you. And I can't believe how, I have done a lot of writing in the two-way prayer. I went back to the park, God, every day for a while. And I don't have to, I can sit in these unknowns and be okay and say, all right, what do you want me to do? And I'm so grateful I get to come to meetings like this and learn from such amazing teachers. And then I also have my feet firmly planted in a newcomers group where people are struggling by the hour not to take that first drink, and they don't have a hold of the steps yet, but they're learning. And I get to bring the knowledge to them. And that day that I was in anxiety, because it was one day it was just really killing me, and I was just like, I mean, I'm not like this close to calling the doctor, like, I need some help. And I was praying. I thought about the newcomers and how they have to work so hard in really early sobriety, to not take that first drink. But it doesn't stay hard, right? Hopefully they keep doing the steps and they get past it and they get to those promises that says, that we recoil as if from a hot flame, that we have a position of neutrality, safe and protected. And I'm feeling that way. I've been feeling that way. I have no idea what God's plan is. I'm really glad that my ex-husband's in a safe place and he's not killing himself. I mean, I don't think anyone's okay with wondering every day if someone's dead yet. I don't think that. I thought I was having a severe codependency first step. And then it was like, I don't think anyone's going to be okay with watching someone they love kill themselves. I think that I'm being a little hard on myself there. But as far as like what's going to happen, I have no idea. And I'm okay. Right here, right now, today, I've given up my life to this program. I know that the most important thing about me is that I'm an alcoholic. I have a deadly disease and that I have to change. I have to work a program today. I'm not perfect. My feelings are hurt about what happened in the home group and what's happening. But I know that we're each on our own journey, just like God has put me on my journey, especially with this relationship and how it brought me to my knees. My human resources were gone, no answers, no direction, no idea what's going to happen, and everything being stripped away that I thought I could count on left me with no choice but to turn to God for probably earnestly, I mean, I probably have before, but not consciously, actively, and like as a part of my life. And it's funny, people do notice that, there's something about my self-will that has been humbled by all of this, and it has taken me to a different place. And last week someone asked Sean about, and I know he's here tonight, about what brought him to his last spiritual awakening. And he said it was because he did everything to make the woman stay and she still left. And that really impacted me because I realized, like, no matter what I do, I have a higher power. It's not me. I'm a speck. Sometimes I joke and say, hey, speck, how you doing? I'm a little speck in the universe and I don't know what my role is supposed to be. I have to check in each day. Like it says. And I really love that it's so simple. That's why I missed it for so long. Hey, God, what do you want me to do? Oh, look, you got a sponsee calling you. Oh, look at that. Someone's at, I mean, it's all I have to do is just be quiet for a minute. That's all I have to do. And it's usually something really simple, and it's right there. And I'm getting a text I'm on my phone because my internet's messed up. My daughter just asked if she could bring laundry home. I love it. It just like popped up right there. Yeah, that's part of my talk. I love it. I love her. I'm so blessed today. And, and that's another thing. I get to just focus on what's good today. God has given me so much in my life. I have 3 beautiful children. They want a relationship with me. They want to come spend time with me at my house. And I'm so grateful for that. you know, and I'm so grateful that I have respect for this program, and I know that it works. I'm glad that I can be honest and say that I still have a long way to go. I'm still learning. And yeah, I didn't try to learn until until I needed to. And I know there's a Q&A portion of this meeting, so I'm going to stop and say thank you for asking me again. And I'm really glad that I'm able to be among you and that I'm not off at a bar somewhere or thinking that I have all the answers. Thanks a lot.